Hello, I just finished watching all of the films in the VHS franchise, including the newest entry, VHS Beyond, that was just released on Shudder. This series can be pretty hit or miss due to the nature of anthology series, and even more so because we get different writers and directors for each segment. So I thought I'd get every single segment and make a tier list out of them. Obviously, this is my opinion, and you're more than welcome to give your opinion on my opinion in the comments. I usually like anthology series, although there are one or two exceptions. I think of anthology series like that old saying about the weather, where if you don't like it, just wait 15 minutes, because that's very much how it is. Not every segment is for every person, and honestly, maybe the whole franchise is just not for you, and that's more than okay. Personally, the first time that I tried to watch VHS, I bailed on it, and it was only because a friend recommended that I give it a second chance that I did. First, I want to explain the different tier meanings. S is essential, the best of the best. A, amazing, but maybe not quite one of the essential ones in my opinion. B, I would still say is mostly good. C is when we hit the middle, kind of meh, we're leaning towards not liking it as much. Although D, definitely not good, but it could be worse. F is just forgettable and just bad, and just you could skip it and you'd probably be better off just skipping it. And finally, we have a section just for the wraparounds, because I'm not going to include them in the main tier list, although I will put them in order of how much I like them, against each other. There are some things that I'm not going to be talking about, not going to be putting in the tier list, and those are like the feature film spin-offs or the miniseries. I may talk about them in a different video. This is just going to be the segments from, VHS to VHS Beyond and just that main series. I want this to appeal to people who have seen all of the VHS films, so you can get my opinion on them, and there will be some spoilers, but I'm going to do my best to keep those to a minimum if I can, especially for like some of the better segments, because if somebody's coming into this franchise fresh and looking for opinions of like where to start and things, I don't want them to have everything spoiled for them before they go and watch it, because I would still like somebody to come watch this and then go and watch VHS if they've never seen these films. So without further ado, we've got 32 segments and 7 wraparounds to talk about, so let's get to it. So I've gone through and put these in order because that just makes the most sense to me. And to start, we have the first wraparound. I do like this wraparound. It starts very aggressively, and I could see how just this beginning of this segment of this wraparound could absolutely turn you off to the franchise, and with it going into the next one we'll talk about even more so. That first part of the film is definitely a bit rough to go through. There's a lot of just kind of despicable behavior. They're very good at getting us to just like want nothing good to happen for any of these characters, so we just are kind of rooting for their ultimate demise. Basically, we're seeing this despicable behavior from them, and then they decide to go find a specific tape that apparently they are going to be offered a lot of money for. So they go to the old man's house. It appears that he is dead, and just like tons of TVs around him, a whole bunch of tapes, and they start watching these tapes, which is what brings us to, why we're watching each one of these videos, which I like. I like having a reason of why we're watching these videos in particular in whatever order, just because these are the ones he's grabbing and he's putting in that this old man happens to have. Overall, I think this is a pretty good wraparound and a pretty good start to the series, although I will say it is definitely very rough, especially in the beginning. Next, we have Amateur Night. Yeah, this is a great one. I really don't want to say too much about what happens going later on. Honestly, the picture for it spoils more than I had planned to. It's from the perspective of some glasses with like a spy cam in them, and these guys that are gonna try to make like an amateur porno, basically. They're definitely pretty rough around the edges, to say the least, but I do think there's some funny moments in here, and when this one flips, it absolutely just goes for it. There is some disgusting imagery that I could not even dream of putting on YouTube. It would be down so fast. And I'll say with this one, as well as the wraparound, be careful around stairs. This is a fantastic first segment, and you know what? I gotta give it an S tier. That's right. Oh, S tier, not B, up to S. Now we're gonna go the other way. Our next one is Second Honeymoon. Just my biggest definition of a skip, forgettable, not good one, because it takes so long to do any of the things that it does. Like most of it is just like a couple that like they're really not working out too well together, just like filming a road trip that they're going on, and then I really don't care about filming this one. In the end, the guy gets killed, and then she's making out with this like weird girl that like showed up. But it's not It's not worth your time. It really isn't. And another reason I don't like this one is because I don't think there's any kind of supernatural element to it. Like, I think that's the point of VHS. They're not just like snuff films. They're not just like, you know, just any disgusting, terrible thing that can put on a VHS tape. They're footage of a supernatural occurrence that's found on this VHS tape. And that there's some kind of evil or something that has come from the supernatural element within the tape. We're not diving that much into the lore. But anyway, just to say, none of that exists in this one, and it's really just not exciting. And I just get bored every time I watch this one. So F tier. Next one, Tuesday the 17th. It definitely doesn't have the most going for it in terms of character and things, but I do like the premise with the killer and what makes the killer kind of more unique. Yeah, it's something that I haven't really seen in a slasher film, and so I like that idea, although I don't think we need all of what exists in this segment, but I think there's some cool stuff in it. And I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna say it's mostly good. Next, we have The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger. That's quite the long title. I actually remember not really liking this one very much, but on rewatch I actually did like it a bit more than I remember. I still didn't love it. I think I would either give it a high C or a B just below Tuesday the 17th. I think for now we're gonna put it in B. That might change. I have kind of gone through this before, written down where I want them to go, but I think I might change them a bit if the mood strikes me. This next segment is the last one in the first VHS film, and it's called 10/31/98. So I think this is probably my second favorite one on VHS, probably just a bit above Tuesday the 17th. It does get a bit special effects heavy, but like I say, I like these guys. They're not the best, but they're not nearly as degenerate as some of the other people we've seen throughout this film. It does get a little special effects heavy at the end, which I absolutely can see if that's not your favorite, but I like that it's kind of exciting. We get a lot of taking your time, especially in this first VHS film, so it's kind of fun to have something that's more energetic as our last segment and taking us out of the film. I would give this one an A. All right, moving on to VHS 2, starting with their wraparound, Tape 49. I think this is a pretty solid wraparound, and I do like the lore that it adds to the VHS kind of thing. I think it's pretty fun. I don't know if I'd like it more than the first one. I do like that we don't deal with quite as much of that despicable nature that we see from the first people. We definitely see that they're, not the best people, not as bad as the first one with that, but overall it feels quite similar to the wraparound of the first one. So I think I may put it just under, because I do feel like the idea of it is pretty similar, but again, I do like, giving a reason to why we're watching these tapes in this order. Moving on to the first segment, Phase 1 Clinical Trials. This is not one of my favorites. I think VHS 2 overall is very strong. I'd say stronger than VHS, but this is not one of the segments that I think really shows that off. I don't really love the ghosts, and also I really don't like the girl showing up. There are just so many things that I nitpick with this one. I'm just like, wait, why does she know where he lives? Why does she think that this is just happening to him? I find myself nitpicking at this one so much, and I think it's because I'm bored when I'm watching it, so I look at more of the faults. Definitely some of the ones I've even placed pretty high already have faults for sure, but I'm entertained by them, so I give them, I give them more credit for it. If you're not really entertaining me as much, then I can just, look at all the things that are wrong with it. I think I could really go either D tier or F tier. I don't know if it quite deserves F tier. It would definitely go above Second Honeymoon if it's in F tier, but I think for right now I'll just put it in D. That might change. We might put that lower. Next one is A Ride in the Park. I think this one's pretty cool. The basic idea is that there's a man with a GoPro who's taking a bike ride through the park, and we get like the start of a zombie outbreak from this perspective, which is pretty fun. I think it makes sense that he would just be filming himself on his bike ride. People do that. Overall, I'd say the effects are pretty good too, like enough that I'm invested in the story and I'm not taking out of it. And I really like how this one concludes. All around, there's really nothing bad I can say about this one. I honestly, I think I had this A tier or maybe S tier. I think I could put S tier. I think I want to put it below Amateur Night. It would definitely go above this one. Yeah, let's put an S tier behind Amateur Night. Next one is Safe Haven. This one follows some journalists as they investigate a cult. I think this is cool because it gives us a lot of opportunities for different shots and they do feel motivated. That's something that I do find annoying when there's not really reason for something to be recorded from a certain angle or something. Like this is supposed to be found footage. I think it's, a really just cool, eerie story, especially once it starts going. It takes its time a little bit, but like I said, that's common in a lot of these, which I think is okay. I think it adds some realism. It takes some time. Sometimes it feels like these segments are dragging their feet, but I don't think I'd say that about this segment. I think it takes its time to build up a little bit, and then it gets quite bombastic, and I think it's fun. I think this is another S tier, and I think I put this one above A Ride in the Park. Next up is our last segment on VHS 2, Slumber Party Alien Abduction. This one kind of comes from the angle of the kids making their own little home movies, filming them bugging their sister, what you would expect from teenage boys and preteen boys. Some of the acting is definitely a little over the top, but I think it makes it more fun. I think this is a segment that does a good job keeping itself fun while not being quite obnoxious during the first half before we go into the second half. But overall, I think this is a pretty fun one, and I think it ends really well. I think this is another one that could be either really, really high A tier or low S tier. I think I may put this one above A Ride in the Park, and that makes me want to put Ride in the Park down to the top of A. So you may be looking at this tier list like, okay, we got some stuff lower, but most of this is pretty high at the top. Don't worry about that, because we're gonna fill out the bottom a bit more with this entry, because it's probably my least favorite in the series, and that's kind of a common thing you'll hear is Viral is not very good, especially compared to 1 and 2. But also, people usually say 1 and 2 are like the best, and nothing after that is any good at all. But I think we do pick up again after VHS Viral. But yeah, this one's a rougher one. To start with the wraparound Vicious Cycle, I'm gonna put that in the bottom right now. It's just doing too much. I think that's something you're gonna hear about a lot of these, but it's just doing too much, and I feel like it's not really saying what it thinks it's saying. Basically, our main character in this wraparound is trying to chase a van that's being chased by the police to get footage of it for YouTube. And as the van goes around, we see there's other people doing this. Every time the van goes past some people, something fucked up happens. Somebody ends up getting, hurt, murdered, something bad every single time. And yeah, I just think I don't really buy into this one very much, and I don't find it very believable. I don't think it's completely terrible, but especially with the 2 wraparounds we have already, it's got to go at the bottom of those. Our first actual segment is Dante the Great. This might be my favorite one from this entry, but I still don't think that it's very good. I like some of the concept. I think it's fun. It's kind of about, a magician that has this cloak that actually does have like evil magical properties, and he's able to do these truly impossible things and actually do them, and nobody knows how he does them because he's actually using magic from this evil cloak. But this cloak has to eat people. So he feeds it people, and then eventually one of his assistants kind of finds this out. Really, my biggest problem with this is the end. We get so many camera angles that don't make any sense. There's so many angles. It's like, what, is there a camera crew that's just right here filming all these cops get murdered? And, Dante the Great is just like, oh yeah, no, I gotta keep my film crew alive right here. They can know that I'm actually super evil magic guy. I'm gonna say it's our first C entry. It's probably the highest entry we're gonna get from this film. Next up, we have Parallel Monsters. So I really don't have the most to say about this one. I think it starts off with a fun concept, but as I said, you'll hear me say a lot, I think it just does too much. It feels like it's trying to be just super edgy, demon, anti-world. I don't know. There's just something about this that just doesn't super grab me. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's particularly good. I think it's just kind of meh. I think I could say that I like the concept for this more than I like the concept for Dante the Great, but I think I like the execution of Dante the Great, at least in respect to how good I think the concept could be. And for that, I think I'm going to put it just below Dante the Great. So let's put it in C right there. Next up is Bone Storm. This follows some skater kids and a guy that they hired to film them. and they end up going to Mexico to film some skate videos because everywhere they go, they're getting kicked out of. At first with the cameraman, like making them do dangerous things and saying like he didn't catch it or whatever, you think that's what it's kind of going to be about, but then it turns out to be some like, you know, gods or demons awakening kind of situation. Overall, I don't get much out of this one. I just find it kind of forgettable. I just don't really like any of the characters, and then it turns into like a first-person like shooter game. I don't know. It's just not for me. It might be for somebody, but this one is just not one of my favorites. Gonna put an F tier. Is it worse than Second Honeymoon? Which would I really rather watch? Neither of them. Or which one would I want to watch less? But yeah, we're gonna put it behind Second Honeymoon just because of the Prospector, and that is the one and only reason. All right, on to the next one. All right, now we're on to VHS 94, and we're gonna pick things up a bit. To start with the wraparound, Holy Hell. This is one I like quite a bit. It follows a SWAT team as they investigate like this weird cult thing that seems to be connected to all these VHS tapes and stuff. It's pretty cool and pretty gory, if you like that kind of stuff. I think it's a fun one. I think there's some good foreshadowing in it as well. I think I might even put it as my favorite, if we can get that to move. Yeah, let's do that. I think I like this one even more than the first two, and certainly more than the one from Viral. Moving on to the first actual segment, which is Storm Drain. I like this one. I think this one's pretty fun and pretty cool. It follows a journalist again, which is usually, I think, a good reason for why we have this found footage. I think we have, you know, a good build-up where things get creepier and eerier as we go on. I think we have some cool practical effects and creature design, and also just a great ending. It's always good to send us off right. If you can sell me with an ending, that's honestly going to do a lot. You'll hear me talk about that a fair amount. So yeah, Storm Drain, I think we're going to put all the way up in S tier. Oh. I just realized I hadn't put it in full screen. So now it's in full screen. Next, we're on to The Empty Wake. I think this one's a little bit more of a slow burn. I do like how we get, you know, a little more information to make the situation more like eerie and creepy. We end pretty wild, which is also fun. Maybe a little bit over the top at the end, maybe a little slow in the beginning, but I'd still say this is one of the ones I like quite a bit. And I think we're gonna put this one in A tier. I think it could go on either side of this one. I think we'll put it just behind it, but just barely. I think it could go in front. I'm gonna put it just behind it. This next one is The Subject. If you notice, I haven't been saying the most about these. That's because I think they're pretty good and I don't really want to spoil them. This one has a lot of like body horror and like sci-fi horror. I like the first half, the first maybe 2/3 more. Definitely becomes a lot more action-packed in the second half, and I do think this one goes a little too much for me. It loses a bit of what made the first part special, because the first part feels much more existential and things. But nonetheless, I think this is a really great one. I think it could go into low A tier or high B tier. For now, I'm going to put it on top of B tier. We might move it. Next up is Tear, which is the last segment of VHS 94. This is another one that I think is really good. I think most of the ones in this movie just knock it out of the park. This is probably the most solid all the way through. This one follows like an extremist militia group, and they've captured a creature. They plan to use this creature to, you know, commit some, just some light domestic terrorism. And things don't go exactly as planned for them, you know? They fuck around and find out. This one's another one that I think could be either an S tier or an A tier. I think for now we're gonna put it in high A tier. I think it does beat A Ride in the Park just a bit for me. All right, next up is VHS 99. So this tier list, it doesn't have a picture for the wraparound, and I think that's pretty fair because it basically doesn't exist, but there is kind of a wraparound there. So just imagine in the bottom spot of the wraparound that there's this wraparound, because it definitely just seems like they threw it on last minute and didn't care. So I'm not even gonna throw it on last minute. I'm just not gonna care. Okay, next up, they tried a little bit harder. This is Shredding. Shredding follows these like tapes that this band is making, like a vlog or something. It seems like they're making their own little documentary about their band and the shenanigans that they get up to. And there's lore about this like old female punk band that was trampled by their fans after like fire broke out when they're performing. And they're gonna do a secret show, or it seems like more like a secret rehearsal because they don't invite people to go, they just go there to perform. Or I think maybe they tell one of the guys that they're just going there to check it out, but they actually plan to like record stuff there. The punk band comes back and actually does kill them because it is actually haunted. I don't know, it just doesn't do much for me. I'm even like a music guy, and like, no, I don't really like these characters. Felt like it was a pretty predictable setup. Didn't really love the conclusion. Just, I think it's pretty meh. Really, all these are bad. I think it can go anywhere right here. Most of these, I don't even know where to put them. They're all bad. Next up is Suicide Bid. I definitely like this one quite a bit more than I like Shredding. Follows a girl that's trying to get into a sorority, and she's doing a suicide bid, which is just applying to one sorority. Anyway, they decide to put her through like hazing ritual where she has to be buried underground. And I think that's about the most that I'll say about it, and let you find out the rest, because I think overall this is a pretty good one. I don't know if I'd quite put it into A tier. I think for now we'll do high B tier, because it is one I think is mostly good. Maybe could even squeak into A tier. Next up, we have Ozzy's Dungeon. Probably the standout for me for this one. This has some pretty fun vibes that like remind me of shows that I just saw like glimpses of when I was at like friends' houses with their sibling watching these shows. And then it gets quite dark. I don't know, this is one that definitely has some silliness before it gets more serious. Yeah, I don't want to give a ton away about this one because I think it's a pretty good one. And I think I'd give this one, maybe it's even an S. We'll put it an S for now. As I keep saying, they may move around a little bit. They haven't moved around very much so far, but we'll see. Next up is The Gawkers. I do think this one is pretty forgettable. I don't know if I'd quite put it into F tier. There's really not a lot I even have to say about this, even not avoiding spoilers or anything. It's just like some teenage guys that, you know, they're gawking at women and they get their comeuppance. I don't want to say how because that's literally the only interesting thing, so I'm not gonna say it. Yeah, I'm thinking D for this one, maybe just a sliver above phase 1 clinical trials. Yeah, it just doesn't do a lot for me, pretty forgettable, but not quite awful. To Hell and Back is our last segment for VHS 99, and I think this is a pretty good one too. I think it has some pretty cool set design and things, and I like the setup for it, especially somebody who like does film things. And then, you know, from the title To Hell and Back, you might be able to predict a little bit of what the segment is about. They go to hell, and I think it's really cool set work. I really do. I think the acting is pretty good too. Maybe it's just a little outlandish, but you know, you're going to hell. I think that's fine to be a little outlandish. Yeah, for the most part, I just say it's a pretty solid one. I don't know if it's one of my absolute favorites, but it's certainly one that I remember. Let's give it. I think I do usually remember Suicide Bid more than this one, but I don't know if I'd really say it's better. But you know, for now, I'm gonna put it right there. We're gonna put it right there because it's not actually all that important. Next, we have VHS 85. To start with its wraparound total copy, I think this one is fun and has a lot of mystery and starts giving you hints and things, but it keeps you on your toes. I think this is a really fun one to bounce out of in between. It almost feels closer to its own segment than a wraparound because we don't really have a reason for why these tapes like we do in some of the other ones, but it is just a solid segment. I'm not sure how high I want to put it. I think for now I'll put it under them. Our first official segment is No Wake. This one follows a group of teenagers, college kids, as they're on some kind of vacation, some kind of break, and they're going out to this lake and they're going to do some water sports. Except they find out that they're not the only ones on this lake. I like the multiple layers we have on this one, and even up until the end we're still getting some new cool information. I think it's a pretty fun concept. I'm going to rank this one pretty high. And yeah, I'm going to put it above those. And actually, as I do that, I think I might put Storm Drain just below Ozzy's Dungeon. And I think it maybe even would beat Slumber Party, Alien Abduction. I don't know. I think they're both pretty fun. Yeah, I'm going to put it above Slumber Party, Alien Abduction. Next up, we have God of Death. This is one that follows like more journalist stuff. It takes place in a newsroom where there's an earthquake. And then we also, you know, we get some supernatural stuff. Again, not wanting to spoil because I think this one is pretty decent, although it's not one of my favorites. I think this one's just a little longer than it needs to be. I do find myself checking out of this one a little bit, but for the most part, I do like this one, and I think it's a pretty solid entry. I think we can either go pretty high C or maybe a low B. I think for now, I'm gonna put it high C, above Dante the Great. Next, we have Techno God. This one has kind of a fun concept, but the main part of this is like a one-woman show, like a monologue kind of a thing. It's just not so much my cup of tea. Maybe it is yours and you'll love it, but if it's not, then that's a lot of what you're watching for a minute. So yeah, I'm not gonna rate this one super high. I don't think it's quite an F. I think it honestly might be toeing that line, but I'm gonna give it a low D. Honestly, I think it might be better than phase 1 clinical trials, maybe even the Gawkers. It's definitely in D somewhere around here. I'm going to throw it I'll throw it there. I'll throw it top of D. I think, honestly, all of these Ds are toeing the line a little bit, but I'm giving them some credit. Ambrosia, I'm going to say almost nothing about, and it's going to go directly behind No Wink for no reason in particular. No reason. Anyway, we're on to the next one, Dream Kill. Dream Kill. Dream Kill has we get POV footage of a home invasion and a murder, and this kind of reminds me of Black Christmas or Sinister. It is pretty cool. It's pretty stylistic. We get a twist that the cops are receiving these videotapes before the murders actually take place. So there's some interesting concepts going on here. I don't know if I absolutely love the execution, but I do think it does it pretty good justice. I like it quite a bit. I think it's a pretty great one. I'm going to give it pretty high A. It's somewhere in here, somewhere snugged in there. Now we're on to the newest film in the franchise, VHS Beyond. I'm really not going to say the most about these because they're still very new, and there's a chance that even people who are quite into VHS maybe haven't seen them yet. This will probably have the least amount of spoilers, but probably still some. First up, we have the wraparound. What I'll mostly say about this is it's kind of more similar to Total Copy, where it feels like it could be a segment and it's less of a reason of why we're watching these particular tapes. I do think I like it more than Total Copy, and it has a fun cameo, and I think that's the most that I really want to give away about this one. Also, I'll just say, I'm definitely going to be giving away less than would be given away just in the trailer. Okay, now we're on to the first segment of VHS Beyond. This one is called Stork. It follows these 5 police officers as they're on a task force that seems like it might be vigilante, or maybe it's just a secret task force. I really didn't dislike this one at first, and I think the ending of it is pretty fun. My biggest gripe with it is just that the creatures kind of look like deadites, and they use a chainsaw at one point to be killing them. So I think Evil Dead, and I think Evil Dead does it better, and I think that the concept they have and some of the other things that they're doing could be more interesting if they leaned more into that and less just what really feels like deadites. Anyway, this just doesn't do the most for me. I don't think it's that bad, but I think I'm just gonna put it high C tier. I think I'll maybe put it above God of Death, but I think it could go behind it. But for right now, it's high C tier. And my opinions on these could change pretty quick. This is the newest one. I've only seen this one twice. So we'll see how all of these stack up if I do another one of these tier lists. Next, we have Dream Girl. I at least appreciate this one for its uniqueness in terms of both this film and the franchise. It's in a setting we haven't been to before, and also a lot of the segments in this particular entry have to do with similar subject matter, and this is a little bit different. It's all sci-fi, but most of them seem to go into a particular side of sci-fi, and this one goes into a little bit different of one. But yeah, overall, I think it's unique in what it's doing, but I don't know that I love it. I think some of the lighting choices and things at the end are definitely a little questionable as well. I just don't know exactly where I want to put it, because I don't really have that much good to say about it, but I really don't have a ton negative to say about it, so maybe that just means that we're in the realm of meh. I think somewhere like there. They're pretty mid. They're pretty mid ones. All right, the next one we have is Live and Let Dive. This one starts out with a group of friends that are about to go skydiving, and they're filming it, just being silly and goofy. Again, I feel like I don't want to spoil anything, but the trailer spoils this. The trailer spoils so much of this one, for real. I don't want to give nearly as much away as the trailer. I would just say, don't watch the trailer for this. If you want to watch it, just watch the film. Don't watch the trailer. But yeah, I think this one is mostly good. I like the beginning. I like how it ends. Right there in the kind of the 2/3-ish area, I think it's doing too much, but I'll forgive it a bit. I'm gonna say mostly good on this one. I think it just gets a little too bombastic, but I think I'd maybe just barely put it before the sick thing that happened to Emily. The next segment we have is called Fur Babies. This one follows a group of animal rights activists as they decide they're going to take down this woman who's doing a doggy daycare thing. She has some taxidermy dogs on her mantelpiece in the commercial, which is why they want to go after her. I think I like this one more in my first viewing. Even the second viewing, I didn't like it as much. I think there are some fun things about it. I think it's some cool body horror. My main issue is it feels like something I've seen before. It does kind of spoil it, but I just gotta say to make this point, because I need to make this point. It reminds me a lot of the film Tusk. I don't know if you've seen that. Not a ton of people have seen that movie, but it's by Kevin Smith, and it stars Justin Long. I don't think I'll spoil what happens in there, or what happens in here, but if you know what happens in Tusk, then you basically know what happens here. Not completely, it's a bit different, but the main idea of it absolutely is just very, very similar to Tusk. The thing that makes this really weird is the fact that it's written and directed by Justin Long and his brother Christopher. I believe it's Christopher. Yeah, Justin Long is the lead actor in Tusk. So why is he releasing this segment that feels so similar to that? Does Kevin Smith know? Does Kevin Smith know? Anyway, I've got to put it lower just because of that. Like, it's still interesting. I'd probably rather watch it than most of these. So I think I will put it there. I think it could easily be a C or maybe even a B, but just knowing that fact really ruins that segment for me. Now, last but certainly not least, we have the segment Stowaway. This is another one I don't want to give too much away. There's a woman making a documentary about aliens. Apparently there's this hotspot where a bunch of people have been seeing things, and she wants to go out there and film it and try to capture this on tape. We don't get a ton of reason why she's so committed to getting this footage, but nonetheless, she very much is, and she definitely is able to encounter some things. And I think it's pretty interesting throughout. I think it has some pretty cool set work, but I think the real treat of it, like a lot of these, is at the end. I want to give absolutely nothing away about what in particular I'm talking about, because it's one of my favorite things. It's probably the thing that stayed in my head the most after watching this newest film. But yeah, I don't know if I'd say the acting is the absolute bestest. That might be more of my qualm, but I don't think it's terrible. But yeah, it's just such an interesting idea, and I really don't want to give away many details about it. That's an S tier, baby. That is an S tier, and I think it might even be able to beat Safe Haven. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's a perfect tier list, but this is definitely a pretty good representation of how I feel about all the segments in the VHS series. Really, I can't thank you enough for watching, and I hope that if you're new to the VHS series, that you have a good way to go. I would definitely recommend either 94 or VHS 2 if you're just looking to watch maybe one or two of them. But I do think there's good things to be found in all of the different films as we see in this, maybe besides VHS Viral. And if you're somebody who's a big fan and has been for a while, even if we have pretty similar favorite picks or something, I'm sure there's places that you disagree with me. And I really would love to hear about those in the comments. Tell me what your favorite segment is. Tell me what your least favorite segment is. If you made it all this way in the video, thank you so much. Consider subscribing. I hope you have a great Halloween season. Bye-bye.